We are coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. Home to ideas and conversations, and how you will qualify them is entirely up to you. Maybe fresh, maybe uncensored, maybe refreshing. It's all good. It's all good. Hello? Dave isn't there. We're in the chat.
Well, I am here.
It's awesome. There he is in the chat. The station is not beholden to anyone. This is important, very important. So it doesn't get any support from any big faceless organizations. It gets support from you, the people. And the people can make it so that this station stays on the air. And if you can do that, that would be awesome. Any kind of currency, crypto is good. But maybe you can't give money, and that's okay. I mean, Jesus, I filled up the cards today. I filled up the cards.
$2.50 a litre, was it?
It's that's what it is. I filled up the car on my birthday, 31st of July. 10 days later, I filled it up again, and it cost me $30 more. Same amount of petrol, same amount, cost me $30 more. And today, filled it up again. It cost me more again, because that's what happens. Today is the 21st of September 2023, and maybe one of the people that you tell about the show, they can donate. That would be good, because maybe you can't, because I'm telling you, I don't care how well you're doing financially, it's going to start hurting. No more caviar breakfasts for you, Dave. No more caviar and lobster breakfasts for you in your golden bed. Just not going to happen. The solid gold bed Dave sleeps on, did you know that? It's not very comfortable, but gosh, it looks good. You can catch the cave on the air, on the line, and onto your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere and listen. Or listen, in fact, at home on the Grace Table Television Radio. Say device a lot of times. Device. The more you say a word, the less meaning it has. Did you notice that? You say a word over and over again, sort of the meaning of the word evaporates into the ether. Hey, but you know what's really cool? The archives are free. And that's another good reason to donate if you can, or tell your friends all about the station. Before we start broadcasting at you in anger, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast here in Australia. And for Dave?
The Dark and Young.
Thank you, sir. And for myself, of course, the direct people. And we would like to pay our respects to elders, past, present, and future. And our temperatures have plummeted about, I want to say, about 15, 16 degrees. Thereabouts, maybe a little bit more.
True.
So yesterday, 35. Today, around the 22, 20 mark, so a significant drop. And back on Monday, it'll be back into the high 20s, low 30s. Summer is here. Do you know how you tell that summer is here in Australia, Dave? Do you know how you can tell?
No, I have no idea.
The insects.
Aha.
The insects everywhere. Look at dragonflies the size of Volkswagens. That's not true. That's an exaggeration. But there's pretty big dragonflies. Also, the eels have come back into our pond, so they must have, come from their slumber. Because what they do is they dig into the mud. Similar with turtles, we've got resident turtles or tortoises in our duck pond, and they have also come alive. That's how we. Also, the bodies start floating into the harbor. The warmer water makes the bodies. All those bodies you thought you got rid of, huh? Yeah, I told you. It's never enough. It's never enough. You just have to do more, always more. Those bodies are pesky. They come back to haunt you. I hear. That's what I hear, Dave.
I read about it on the internet.
Anyway, how are you traveling?
I just wanted to, good morning to everyone in the US, by the way. At 7 a.m. Get your cup of coffee. And I'm going to tell you how much it costs per gallon of fuel.
Per gallon? That's going to shock them a little, I think.
So it's about 3.8 litres per US gallon.
That's correct.
That's close. All right. And if you do 3 3.8 times 2.5, you end up with $9.50.
A gallon.
So a gallon. So if you live in the US and you're paying anything less than that, they're rookie numbers.
It's a bargain where you're from. You think about now. The funny thing is this, right? Of course, in a lot of the oil-producing countries, petrol is super cheap if it costs anything at all. It's really quite something, and there's really no good reason for petrol prices to be the way they are now. No. Back in the late 90s, I want to say mid to late 90s. Everybody talked about the peak oil production is coming. We were reaching peak oil. It was a big thing. Huge.
Well, the 70s had the same thing. Then it came back in the 90s.
It's bigger than JFK. I tell you. I had a few people. I went to Nexus conferences and there were speakers dedicated just speaking about peak oil. That was it.
Right.
That's all they talked about. Now, what did peak oil mean? Peak oil meant that there would come a time, and they predicted the year 2000 or 2005 or whatever, when our oil production would reach its peak, meaning that's the most oil we'll ever get out of the ground, and from here on it's just a down slide into nothingness. That never happened. Peak oil never happened. Now, there were a number of reasons for that. One, the unprofitable, hard-to-extract oil became easier to extract and more profitable because of technological advancements. That was one. But we also found more and more oil reserves because we thought we had it all, right? But no, we found more. And I don't think there's such a thing as peak oil, to be honest. And in fact, if Mr. Schwab has his way, we'll all drive in little electric Trabants. The Trabant or a Lada was the communist version of a car. Before the year is out.
It'll be like a sofa inside a vehicle, but it'll be electric, and you'll probably just open the front up and get in it.
Thank you for choosing Johnny Cat. But why did we talk about peak oil? And again, this is Plato's cave, and we're trying to expose the flaws, hopefully, in the cave walls narrative. We discussed before how conspiracy theories are obviously targets for debunking, obviously, especially if they're true. But what they do, the great washed, the parasites, they plonk things in there which appear true, but are completely bonkers. And then people can look at it and go, oh, well, peak oil seemed reasonable, but clearly, even peak oil was a complete nonsense. But we had scientific evidence, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? But even that, so they can point at it and go, well, if peak oil didn't happen, then all the other stuff clearly is nonsense as well. And it's a really clever way of discrediting people that think otherwise. If you think otherwise, you're a target. Okay? And if you think otherwise and you have an audience, then you're an even bigger target. And if you think otherwise and you have a big audience and you're right, then you're the biggest target of all. So just be careful, right? Who you speak to and what you do. And just look at the lengths. And this is not even the parasites. This is just stuff we do to each other. Look at the lengths to which people go to discredit each other, or to themselves, or others for that matter. Like, look at Donald Trump. Now, I don't love the guy. He's a billionaire, so obviously, automatically, I have a problem with him. But look at it. How much more could they throw at him? Now, Biden and Biden's son as well. I'm not saying he's innocent. What I'm saying is that all the mud is being slung now. All the mud is coming out, right? Russell Brand, again, don't know if he's guilty or not. Even former icons like Imran Khan sits in prison. Okay? See, this is the thing. Nobody.
I thought I recognized that guy this morning on the news.
That's him, all right. There's this, there's this killing that took place of a Sikh now I can't remember if it was in Canada, but certainly the Canadians are getting the knickers in a knot over it, and the Indians aren't too happy with Canada's reaction to the alleged murder of this Sikh activist. He was a separatist, right? And I think Canada alleges that he was killed. Oh, here we go. Yeah, India suspends visas for Canadians as row escalates. Okay, and Canada's PM linked India to the killing of a Sikh separatist leader. That's the long and short of it. And there's more and more that the division is there. The division is there. We don't need the parasites to divide us. I mean, they're certainly not helping. But if we can't even see through our own nonsense, Dave, then what can we do?
Look, if they can chop us into smaller and smaller groups, we're unable to assemble. And that's the easiest way to describe it. Because en masse, a group is pretty lethal. I mean, lethal from as the standpoint of being able to protest your word and get to air. You'll get media. But if there's only 3 of you, because they've, through the uniqueness of moths to flame, they'll separate the groups into such small groups that you become ineffective.
Yes.
And sadly, once and of course on the other side of that coin, when you've got a loud enough voice with a large enough audience, that's when you end up in court with charges. So the old Alex Jones, now we've got a Russell Brand. I suppose that the most inconvenient voice was Trump. So, I mean, they don't all say the same thing, and they don't all talk with the same sharp tongue, possibly on the same topics, but they're all inconvenient. And as a mob boss would have you, was it swimming with the fishes?
Where's Archie? He's swimming with the fishes, Bob.
So as they would do that, it appears as though that's inevitable if you become large enough or have enough voice with enough audience. And that's the way I see it. It is my thought, but what was that thing, Mackie? If it happens once, my bad. If it happens twice,
okay.
Right?
Once is an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Twice is happenstance, and 3 times is enemy action. So
yeah,
and I think that's true. But you know what the funny thing here is? This is the funny thing. All these things that we are looking at and feeling enraged about or upset or whatever the case may be are completely irrelevant. The parasites couldn't care less if Trump or anyone else for that matter got elected. Makes absolutely no difference to any of them, as long as the narrative doesn't change. And the narrative doesn't really change. The narrative doesn't change. What does it mean? Well, we are all okay, and we're all allowed to talk within the box. No problem. You stay in your box, you can do whatever you like. It's only the people that get outside the box that are a problem. And for the most part, I mean, if we're worried about who gets president, that's in the box. If we're worried about who gets arrested for whatever crime, that's in the box.
Yeah.
It's all in the box. You're worried about... See, that's why they give us all these things to worry about and to be divided over.
Occupy us and be divided, yeah.
I mean, if you're, let's say you're an intellectual person, meaning, let's say you think for yourself, right? But you haven't been exposed to the really crazy stuff that Dave and I have been exposed to. I mean, really crazy stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you go, what? This is not reality. And both Dave and I had experiences in our lives that where you go, okay, I can just ignore it now and just go on with my life. Okay. Or I really think about what just happened and try to make sense of it, which is, of course, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But most people will go, that's just too hard basket. And we go on, and then we stay within the box, right? And this is really what this is all about. And if you're like this intellectual person, right, and you just look at all the things and they upset you. You're upset about voting fraud, and you're upset about the economy and climate change and volcanic activity and COVID. You're upset about all these things, okay? But they don't matter, right? Because once you've seen those crazy things, and I mean crazy things that would get you committed, really, right? If you insist they happen, then you have nowhere to go. The box is the box is no longer sufficient. The box is no longer sufficient. It doesn't allow for the things that you have experienced. It doesn't make sense inside the box. So you look for answers outside the box, which is what we've done. Obviously, and others as well, obviously. And some people never live inside the box. A lot of native cultures, believe it or not, they live outside the box their entire lives.
Yeah.
They don't matter, though, right, in the scheme of things, because they can't change things. They tried to change things. They did in 2020. They did try to change things.
That's the truth.
But whoosh! Tonight. It's just like when you're playing. It's as a German game called Mensch ärgere dich nicht. It's kind of like, I guess, like snakes and ladders. But you have to get 4 of your pieces from the home or from the starting point into the home, and you go around the board. You roll the dice, and other pieces can knock you out, right? And the game literally means don't get upset. That's what the game is called. Don't get upset, or human being or man, don't get upset. And that's a bit. It's a bit like that, right? You keep going around and people keep knocking you off the board. You're not getting anywhere ever. Okay. The natives people, they're just oh good, it's better, and they probably have better lives than we do for it. See, this is interesting. Most of the native tribes, they're not afraid of Sasquatch or Bigfoot or whatever. They think it's a blessing to see that creature. They are terrified of skinwalkers.
Yeah.
Terrified. And with good reason, I think. And of course, we have no real feeling other than we want to bag one and stuff it and put it in a museum. That's the extent of our ambition. We go around the world. Look at how we explore the world. We go around the world. We kill natives as well, but we kill all the native wildlife and we pluck all the flowers. We stuff them, we preserve them, we put them in jars. We bring them back to Europe to look at what I found out there in the world. It's a monkey floating in a jar full of alcohol. Look at that! Wow!
Or formaldehyde, yeah.
Now, I think this is a uniquely, I want to say, European affliction. I want to say, because many other cultures, they just didn't really do that. Well, maybe they did, we just don't know it, right? But I really do think it's a particular where we need to go out in the world and we collect things, and then we put them in jars, or we stick needles through it, or we stuff them and then we hang them off the wall, or whatever we do, right? I think it's just, that speaks volumes as to our relationship with the natural world. Okay. Look at all this nature I discovered. It's in jars and stuffed with needles through the abdomen and hanging on the wall. It's all dead. But it's all this nature. Look at it. Look at it. Stop.
That's a lot of nature you brought back.
That's a lot of nature. I'm a nature guy. I'm not really. And that's who we are, fundamentally, right? We used to put people, you know this, Dave.
Yep.
Our listeners know this too. We used to put people in the zoo. In the zoo. What? Oh yeah. Well, they're darker than us. They don't have indoor toilets, and they don't kill each other all the time. Primitives. barely human. What?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
we
an
are
extraordinary
quite
contrast to the style of the people who did it. Yes, I get you. Yeah.
it's phenomenal, and we all, I guess we all think how wonderful we all are, and it's I'll tell you.
Oh, look! To be honest, thank goodness we've come a long way from doing that to at least where we are today, and hopefully where we're going to be tomorrow and the next day.
Hopefully, yes. Yes, sir.
Because
yes, sir.
It bothers me greatly just how appalling we've been. I mean, I want to say all the wrong words. Hang on a minute.
Say the wrong words.
Yeah. So I would say the ones who believed they were empowered, and that works on all levels.
Yeah.
That's where my head's been recently. So yeah, that's kind of pertinent.
No, but look, it all hinges on us buying into the narrative. And the reason I love the Matrix movies, the Matrix movie, because the other three never happened. They didn't happen. I will say that I like the Animatrix. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
But the reason I like the Matrix movie so much is it made the concept of Plato's Cave accessible to a much wider audience. I mean, people know about the Matrix. They would never pick up a book on philosophy or ever heard of Plato. Ever! Which is okay. I dig it. It's cool, right? But they are now familiar with the concept of a world that is completely artificial, fake, and not the world that you actually live in, which is what Plato's Cave really illustrates. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to the makers of the Matrix movie. Because the rest was just Star Wars on the ground, really. So, it's all these pew, 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 pew. I mean, come on. And then the last one? What was that about? I mean, that didn't even make any sense, the last
one was a clip show, Mackie. That's what it was.
It was a clip show. It was a clip show. What? It made no sense. Look, forget that, but from a narrative point of view, it didn't make any sense at all.
Okay,
it's
so
like
just imagine you've taken an audience and given them a piece of paper each, and they can write one thing and one thing only. What was the favorite thing, or the best thing, or the worst thing, or the part of the plot you liked? And they just wrote them down. They put them in a big barrel. They spun the barrel, and they had to join every third thing together, right? And they plucked them out and randomly joined all these things together. The wrong character was saying the wrong line in the wrong place. It's just, oh.
I like what you just did there. That way the movie makes sense.
How does Trinity sound so aloof now, right? Oh my goodness.
I know, right? It was the best thing in that, because I watched it. I did watch it.
With the credits at the end.
Neil Patrick Harris. I love Neil Patrick Harris.
Yes,
I just like Neil Patrick Harris.
Yes,
that's just me.
True.
I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a fan, Neil. You're great. Seriously.
Yeah, I like when he put his hand up to the insect, the bug, and was reading its mind. That was great. Different movie.
Different movie entirely, but
Starship
also,
Troopers, but,
in fact, if you haven't read the book, phenomenal Heinlein book, as it were. Anyway, The Futility of War, and so forth. But yeah, it's if you don't buy into the narrative, they're coming for you. They're coming for you, and we're getting now to a point with artificial telepathy and chip implants and AI. What people don't realize is this, and this is really important to understand. In the world, we have a gazillion cameras everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We got sensors. We got speech capturing devices. In fact, we all carry our speech capturing devices with us.
Do.
Okay, and even if you switch it off, the only way to really disable it is to take the battery and the SIM out.
That's right. I
That's
love
it.
the leader.
Love the leader more. Twice in the morning. And this is really, but most people don't make the connection, which is okay. With AI or emerging AI, and it's not really AI yet. It's not really. It's not. Okay, it's not. We haven't had singularity as far as I can say, but we'll see. But with the ever increasing sophistication of the analytical algorithms, that's a mouthful, we will see a deeper and deeper penetration and invasion into your private lives. I mean, right now, things will pop up on your devices, no matter what device, that will advertise whatever. And it does that because it knows you. Or, I mean, gets me wrong frequently, which is great because I leave my phone all over the place and it picks up completely random and incorrect things, which is wonderful. But these things pop up, right? And sometimes, or most of the time, they might be accurate. Now people say, oh, that's really great. They know me. Well, is it? Is it that great? I mean, how much do you want them to know you? On top of that, cash is going to go bye-bye. That has been on the agenda for a long time. Ever since we entered the computer age, okay, zeros and ones, I figured that cash is on the way out because once cash is out, hard cold cash that you carry around, they know everything about you. What you buy, where you buy it, when you buy it, yeah. All your proclivities, or maybe little dirty secrets, whatever it might be, how much you eat, potentially how much petrol you consume, your physical movements from location to location, so they can pinpoint wherever you are at any given time. So you could never be a troublemaker. I mean, Stalin and Hitler could only dream about control.
Oh, could you imagine they rose today?
Oh, brother, don't see. That's the thing. Mene mene tekel upharsin. Now that means the writing is on the wall, right? Mene mene tekel upharsin. And it is, because you're right. Because someone inadvertently, maybe not even someone, okay, ooh, ominous, will rise and use that information, not really to make your life better.
I think that's
but
happening.
Maybe to make your life...
If I look around, I think it's happening.
Yeah? It's happening. Like, okay, I was born in 1969. I didn't have a helmet for my bike. I didn't have any knee pads or elbow pads
I took all
when
the
I was on my
reflectors off
scooter.
my bicycle.
That's right. I ran on asphalt, and in Germany asphalt is quite rough in my street. I ran, and I fell down so hard I scraped my knee so many times I've got a permanent scar on my knee from 50 years ago. Yeah. Okay? That's how badly I injured myself. I went out, I played, I broke my arm. I was 5 years old. No, because it was well before school. My father found me with my friends. I was easily 300, 400, maybe even 500 meters away from my house. And again, because there's stuff in between us, it's a fair distance for a small child, but I was playing with my friends on my own.
Yeah.
My parents would let me roam all day. Just come home for lunch, come home for dinner.
Yep.
I used to ride my bike, unsupervised, without a helmet. To Cologne, which was 20 kilometers, and back to Bonn, which was 30, and then another 15 back home. It was a day trip for us back then, right? And why did we do it? Because we could. I was allowed to start drinking when I was 16, wine and beer only, right? I made some bad decisions. I got really sick from drinking too much. But the point I'm trying to make here is I was free. I was pretty free. My grandfather, Forrester, I told you the story before, he had guns in his house, and they were in a wooden cabinet. Locked up, but it was a wooden cabinet. I mean, right? So he had a shotgun, single barrel shotgun, and he had one carbine rifle.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah. And he also had 3 revolvers, 2, I think, small calibers, and he had Smith & Wesson 38.
Ooh, that's
as well.
Good.
And ammunition, all in the same wooden cupboard. And he taught me to shoot in the living room of his flat When I was 7 or 8 years old, I would go all the way to the corridor. At the end of the corridor, I remember. So I was at the end of the corridor. To my right was the kitchen. To my left was the entrance to the flat. Right. So I was standing there with my back to the wall, and in front of me, maybe I want to say 7, 8 meters, maybe 9 meters, maybe a bit more, was the wall of the living room. And he put a couple of phone books on top of the wooden cabinet where he kept his guns. And he said, "Okay, go ahead, shoot the phone book." So I did, and I brought it to him, after I finished, and he looked at the phone book. "Oh, how close were you?" I said, "I was all the way at the back." He goes, "Oh, that's really good. Well done."
Wow.
And then I helped him clean the guns. I was 7 or 8, like I said, but he taught me gun safety. I would never have dreamt of raising that gun to a person.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, that thought never occurred to me. It never occurred to me. Even later in life, when I became a teenager, disgruntled and hateful of the world, it never occurred to me to pick up those guns and use them for any purpose. You know what I mean? Like it never occurred to me.
I'm just going to say those phone books, though, don't get in Mecky's
Oh, I know.
way.
Yeah, they didn't have a long lifespan for phone books back in those days. But I to this day I remember the smell of the gun oil, ballistol that we used, and it's a very specific smell. It's actually really good for skin conditions. I had like a rash on my head, and as a baby, and my grandfather said to my mom, "Just use this gun oil." What? Yeah, use the gun oil. And she didn't want initially, but then she didn't. She goes, "Oh my God, it really works!" Because in the forest, he said, if you've got an injury or they couldn't get infected, you put the gun oil on it, and you should be okay, right?
Wow.
But so this childhood I just described, right, is I want to say about 45 years ago. Okay, we used to roam outside. There was a forest near my village, I guess, or was surrounded by forest, but fields and forest. You go into the forest, and there was also a Belgian garrison there. The last garrison to leave Germany, by the way, after World War II. Yeah, they left in the 90s. Believe it or not. Anyway, and I used to ride in the dark through snow. I used to ride through snow that my bike could barely make it through, but I did. And if I hadn't worn my earmuffs, my ears would have frozen off on the way to school. Today, think of the nanny state we live in. Think of all the things I just told you. If anybody even suspected that my grandfather was teaching his 7 or 8 year old grandson to shoot in his living room, the police would be so fast your head would spin. Okay? No, I'm not saying it was strictly illegal what he did back then, but there was no gun safe. He kept it in a wooden cap.
Yeah,
it was locked.
I mean, look, the times were different, Mickey. It's okay.
Yeah. But that's the point. But were they? We made them different. We've become such ninnies. Or, what? You can't even go out anymore and just be free and be yourself. Everything is controlled and regulated. You need a license for everything. You need permission for that and the other, and you want to do this? Oh no, you can't do that. I mean, it's insane. It's complete insanity.
There's an interesting point to make here, and that is when something happens to someone, we create a way to stop it from happening to everybody. Yeah. And that's by signage or safety fencing or whatever it is. Barriers, I'm going to say that the net effect is actually making people less wary of their surroundings and less capable to survive when there isn't anything. So if you're only used to there being a sign that warns you that there's a step or a slippery floor, right? Or there is, a don't walk signal that says you shouldn't walk across the road until the signal goes green. As a pedestrian, or those safety fences that funnel you towards the pedestrian crossing when you leave the shopping centre, so you just don't wander into traffic. I've stolen that bit from AbFab.
You You're right, Dave. I must concur with your conclusions.
Right. And so if you had a comparison of how two different people from time back then and now were able to conduct themselves back then, both of them back then, our people wouldn't make it. The today people wouldn't make it because they're so used to having these signs and safety fences and things that were all...
Hang on.
Are
you saying I should not drink the battery acid?
They're all there to save the person who was not aware. They don't save the rest of the population. They only save the person who would be more likely to not pay attention. But by doing that, we're breeding in more of the not paying attention people into our society. They weren't getting filtered out. Right. So I lost a lot of friends, Maggie, along the way in this life, all who they either did something completely stupid, they weren't aware of their surroundings, or they could have used a safety fence, but they're gone now. Right? Look, I'm not saying that they were particularly stupid on their own, but if you've ever seen a child run into traffic chasing something, they've only got one ability to concentrate on one thing. They can't do all those things at once like you can as an adult. I get it, and I'm just gonna say, I delivered mail, Mackie, when I was a kid. I delivered mail on horseback up at my uncle's small little tiny little farm in the middle of nowhere. It was, right? Not a huge ranch with millions of cattle. No, it wasn't. And I would not trade that for the today existence of just sitting in my bedroom on my tech, on Facebook, on social media, taking photos and doing selfies. And I would not trade my growing life, even to yesterday or even today, with someone today. I wouldn't trade it.
I agree. I mean, we to be very simplistic here, we had to make our own fun for the most part. I had a TV. Well, I didn't. My family had a TV until I was 8 or 9 years old that had 3 channels and was black and white, and I was the remote control. Okay, and we just didn't watch much TV. I mean, there was nothing on it because there was no 24/7 TV shows. I mean, TV usually started in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock, with some news or whatever, and then it would finish at 10 or 11 or whenever. That was it.
Because remember they used to have the station close.
Yeah,
message.
That was it.
Yeah.
Come back tomorrow.
That's right.
What? And I remember in every country, because I visited my relatives in Turkey, and it was the same in Turkey at a certain time, 11, 12 o'clock, they would start playing the national anthem, and that was it. End of broadcast. Remember the test picture?
That's right.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, the test pattern.
Most people.
Yep.
Yeah. These as you say that, people just look at you. What do you mean test pattern? What? Simon says test pattern. And you had to go out and do things. You had to read, maybe. Maybe you wanted to go with your friend. Remember, you used to go to your friends and like, can Udo come out to play? Can Peter come out to play? And sometimes you're nervous. You didn't want to ring the bell, but you did anyway because you didn't want to play by yourself.
That's right.
And okay, can such and such come out to play? And it was fun, to be honest with you. I mean, of course there were problems and not everything was rosy, but I mean, I remember very clearly the taste of those little tiny strawberry ice blocks that we used to get. A wonderful treat during the hot summer. I used to sit there, and I mean, not burn them with a magnifying glass, but I used to sit there watching ants all day long. I used to give them a little cube of sugar, and then I would just watch them eat it. Diminish it, take it back to the lair. And that was, for me, that was entertainment. I mean, maybe I'm a simple person, but and I fear that my children don't have that same carefree environment anymore. Even if my wife and I try to provide it for them, outside influences are. I mean, eldest daughter worries about what she wears. She's not even 10 yet. Do you know when I started worrying about what I wear? Never.
Never. It hasn't happened yet.
Like, you can't look like a mug in my job, right? So you have to, my son always wears a suit or whatever, but it's, and when I was younger, I guess I wanted to impress the girls with what I wear, fair enough too, but not at the age of 9 or 10.
Yeah. And
I don't know, Dave, something just went really wrong in the world where this is just, this didn't just start. This started happening much earlier than that. And I went to a shop in Singapore, one of those big shopping centers. Name escapes me at the moment. The Paragon. And inside there it was pretty fancy. I'll be honest. This is a fancy place, right? And so on the first level, you can go up to the first level. Oh, kids shops. And I walk into one kids shop. Oh my God, there's lots of nice kids' clothes, leather jackets and jeans and whatever. So I pick up the leather jacket. It's like $2,000. And it's just the right size for like a 5-year-old. How long do you think a 5-year-old is going to wear a $2,000
less than
leather
a year?
If you're lucky. And then what? It becomes your loafer? I don't know. And I looked around, so and this was like obviously a fancy, kind of some kind of fancy brand, and all these shops were like that. But what it means is there are people that will spend that money on that item. No one would sell it if no one wanted to buy it, right?
No, that's right.
So that is the thing. It's a market, and there was lots of these shops, and they had lots of items. They were all for little kids. And I thought to myself, wow, it's clearly I'm not making enough money in this life. It's just like, what? But then I thought, would I, even if I had the money, would I buy my kids these things? And then you have to start thinking about, well, if you are that rich, then you probably have friends that are that rich. Mm-hmm. And if you've got friends that are that rich, they might not really be your friends, but they sort of, are you then competing with those friends? Are you going to turn into the guy that is my neighbor has got this, and then I have to get that kind of guy? Would you turn into that? I don't know. I hope not, but you never know, right?
Yeah, keeping up with the Joneses is definitely a thing. I've noticed wherever I work, the people drive the car that will make them the most money. They don't want to drive a car, for instance. They don't want to be seen in clothes or seen in a car that doesn't suit their role. Like if your audience is, Beamers and Audis and Mercedes, then you've got to drive one of those.
Almost inevitably, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I once worked with a wonderful CEO, a tremendous fellow, still friends with him, and he just had an old Ford Ute. He was the CEO of a health fund. He drove it to work. Where he put all his money was in his sailing. Yeah. He had a yacht and also a competitive sailing vessel. I don't know what class it was. All carbon fiber. This thing was crazy. But it was. I pay more attention and respect to someone who doesn't dress in a $8,000 suit, who has someone wash their car and shine their shoes every day. Someone who just put it together because they're just clothes right. That kind of thing. Because they're creative and they're not... I don't know how to explain it, Mickey. I'm going to pass it to you. What do you think that I'm looking at here?
It's probably...
It's not non-conformity. It's just they don't even see that that's even...
It's the ability to be who you are, to put it simply. And no matter what else. So in order to achieve selfdom, to coin a phrase, you need to be completely comfortable with yourself. You need to be happy with who you are and where you are in life. You have to actually love yourself, right? Not in a crazy sense or a narcissistic sense, but just in the sense that you're comfortable with yourself. And at that point, to take the example of your CEO, it doesn't matter. He could be driving. He could be on a Vespa. I'm still the person that I am.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've achieved the
I think that's
state of
an
mind,
attainable goal.
yeah, but see, it's all about you.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where you are or what you do or what you have, you're still you, fundamentally. If you had $1 in your pocket or $20 million, if that made no difference to who you are, then you have achieved that state of mind, that state of being. I'll be honest with you. I think about this a lot, right? I'd like to win the lottery. Of course I would. What would change in my life? Well, I would do the things that I want to do rather than the things that I have to, right? And I pity everybody who stays at work once you win lottery big time. But hey, whatever makes you boat float. But once you, and then you have all that money, but do you need to fancy up? I mean, if you fancy it up, let's say for argument's sake you win $10 million or more, doesn't matter, right? And then you buy yourself this big house and a big, like a mansion, these cars. Let's say you get like maybe $50 million, whatever, like a huge amount of money, right? But you move to another suburb and your kids go to another school, blah blah. At that point, you actually have to get new friends because your lifestyle has changed. All the friends that you had previously, they can no longer be your friends because they can't keep up with you. And trust me, that will become an issue.
That happens, yeah.
Right? So you do all these things. Maybe you got a holiday for the rest of your life. You never do anything ever again, or you do the things that you love, whatever. But you let that money take over your life and make choices for you, because the money is now making your choices, not you. Okay? You think you're making the choices, but you're not. The money that you have is making your choices for you. Just take a step back and think about, well, what does it take for me to be happy, or to live my life? Who do I want to be, and how do I want to be, right? And how would money play into that? If the money freed you up to do what you want to do, awesome. If it allowed you to follow your dreams and just go ahead and be the person that you always wanted to be, explore the things you want to, go ahead and do it. If all it does is buy you stuff, I think you're missing the point. If it's just stuff that you're after, then I don't think that's fulfilling. And you wouldn't have the same attitude as Dave's old CEO. You have to be comfortable within yourself and be at least content with who you are. Right? If you get money on top of that, you know what? I reckon a lot of people that have the state of mind that I just described, they would give a lot of money away. I mean, I have this dream that when I win lotto, I'd like to start a foundation, like a scholarship foundation or something like that. I'd love to do that, right? Because I see a lot of people that don't have it as good as I do, right? And I have it pretty good, comparatively speaking, right? And I don't live in a mansion, but I live in a nice house, right? My kids have food and clothes. I'm winning. But a lot of people are not winning. And if you can help other people, fantastic. Fantastic, do it. Right? If you spend it all on yourself and ever fancier cars and bigger houses, well, maybe you're missing the point. But again, I'm not judging. You do what you need to do. But look, Dave and I, we have been wanting to do certain things for some time, and what is missing in that equation are two things: time
and money.
Okay? And time is a direct function of money. Okay, so one is dependent upon the other. It's just how it is. It's both Dave and I. We have to work for a living, so don't call us sir. We actually have to work for a living. Okay, and that eats into your day. Something fierce. It really does. Dave. When was the last time you worked a 9-to-5 job?
I can't remember.
Exactly.
Because I've worked way more than the allocated agreed hours for so long. I just don't remember anymore.
And it's required. Okay, how can I put this best? We are forced into that position. because the expectations are high, and if you're not going to do it, then someone else might. Okay, someone younger, someone faster, someone whatever, right?
Cheaper.
So cheaper, and so you do the work, okay, and you know you're doing it well, but ultimately, we're all expendable. None of us is uniquely required to do anything, and the least of all, in my opinion, is CEO. But they get the biggest check of all. And I think that's because they really are not required, and they can be dispensed with very quickly, if you will. And so they need a bigger paycheck because they usually only in a job for 2 years, and then they're out. But look, I just wish I had the money to make the time for the things that I feel I need to do. Right, and it's not a matter of resolve. It really isn't. Work consumes 40, 50 hours a week. Okay, and then you've got other obligations. You've got to clean the house, you've got to mow the lawn, you've got to do the grocery shopping. I mean, all this stuff is time. I mean, life takes time. And what Dave and I do here, the show on a Tuesday, Thursday, and a Sunday. On a Sunday, it's always researched, and then it's always show notes. Mm-hmm. Tuesdays and Thursdays, for the 1 hour that we do here, there's no show notes. Topics maybe, but what you're experiencing is mostly a stream of consciousness. The way Dave and I would talk anyway.
That's true.
In the world. So
and we do.
So it's probably more swearing in the real world, but
that's also true.
For emphasis, mind you. Mm-hmm. For emphasis, no other reason. But look, we would love to go and explore Black Rock, for example, right? Or
Black Hill. Black Hill, yes. Or go into the Yowie, hotspots, mm-hmm. or look at the ancient sites, like the megalithic builders in Australia, for example. I'd love to see the Bosnian pyramid, see it, and I would like to go to Indonesia to see that massive construction there, maybe the oldest pyramid on the planet. Oh yes.
I'd love to go and see that too. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. There's also a wall in the US.
That's right.
Which is, for all intents and purposes, looks like it was man-made.
Yeah.
Well, or manufactured, and they claim it wasn't. Yeah.
But there's all this stuff, right? That one could rather do, and I've spent the best years of my life. Small violin coming. I spent the best years of my life working. No, I don't regret it because obviously I built the life that I wanted to build, mm-hmm. more or less, and it allowed me to do the things that I did do. But I just reflected on this recently. I've been working for 40 years. I've been working for 40 years, and a big chunk of that 40 years, I spent working 7 days a week. Right, so from the early 90s to the late noughties, I worked 7 days a week, sometimes in several jobs. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't regret it, not really. I could have done better things with my time, probably. But you do what you do, right? And I've lived my life in between. But, I reflected on this when my mother passed away earlier this year. And how much, all the things that I would no longer be able to do, taste her cooking, speak to her, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And that really doesn't hit home until some time has passed, right? Because then you find yourself, I better tell mom about this. You find yourself thinking like, I can't, I want to, if mom's going to cook me that. You for a moment you forget that someone has passed, and you just think like they were still there, but it does reflect on life as well.
2 minutes.
Oh geez. Stream of consciousness. Can't stop it. But you know what I mean, Dave, right?
Yeah, totally. Oh, I'm there. I've been there, and the thoughts of my late mother come by me every once in a while as well in different ways. If I see something that's particularly funny, because we used to share a lovely joke or a look, we had the same kind of thought, or we would get the giggles. My goodness, for half an hour or so, and couldn't talk. And make any sense after that, right? And my father would just roll his eyes because he couldn't. He wasn't playful like that. So yeah, a lot of fun. You know what? I just every time I think about that, I want to have and find those kinds of moments with my kids, so they'll have something to remember.
That's important, creating those memories, because I look back at my childhood and I think of all the memories that my parents, my grandparents, etc. created for me, and that's then. But sometimes you forget that, but I do try to remember that this is actually what we're doing here, and. I always forget that my children have never lived in any house but this one that we're living in right now, right? And so, for them it's more meaningful even than it is for me. Because this is their house.
Right?
Yeah, I've moved around like a crazy person. Like that I am. So I guess that's the reason. No, look, but fleet surf. Hey, listen, I'm gonna do a Russian voice on Sunday for the first hour. How's that? I don't think I can do Zelensky. I'll do a Russian. I will do. Oh, yeah, sure, of course. We will do it. And yeah, but like I'm going to practice. This is horrible. Maybe do some other accent. Speak like a pirate. Something on Sunday. And there's the music. So look, hey, this has been Plato's Cave. Thank you so much for allowing us into your lives. Ever so briefly, don't go anywhere. Something is going to come up. Something awesome, I'm sure. So don't touch that dial. But most of all, as always. Okay.